board meeting. The meeting is this evening will be live streamed to the public. The induction loop system is now in operation in the chamber. Any exemplar private items on the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into private. There may be a short delay. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. All members and officers, please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into them and switch off when finished. Any officers called upon by the portfolio holder should add by the they've given me the wrong script. Any officers called upon to speak should address the any officers. We'll ignore that one. Please remember to switch off your mobile phones or place them on silent. Sorry about the little hiccup there. Okay, before we start the meeting, is there any declaration of interest? Oh, sorry, any apologies for absence?
None, Chair.
Thank you. The minutes for the 28th of July meeting, is that all approved? Everyone's happy with the minutes? Yeah. Perfect, thank you. Do we have any disclosure of interests?
Chair, when it comes to the housing landlord, so I'll have to consider whether I sit into that meeting or not.
Are you declaring a personal interest?
Yes. Yeah. It's an interest, but it's non-pecuniary. Although it's talking about the structure of a panel, but I just wanted to declare my interest.
That's fine. Leave the final decision with yourself. Councillor Hanif.
Yeah, I'm a board member of Luton Rising. Just again, I believe it's a non-pecuniary interest, so I'll just be listening to the debate, but I won't be taking part. Let's check.
It's the same goes for me.
Okay.
I'm also a board member.
That's fine. Give me one.
There's three of us.
Okay, that's fine. Where's Councillor Lyons?
Just want to get some vote.
Okay. That's fine. We'll start off with the first item on the agenda, which is the review of London Luton Airport Sustainability Report. I'll pass over to the officers presenting.
Thank you, Chair. The Section 106 legal agreement associated with the Secretary of State's decision to allow Luton Airport to increase to 19 million passengers required a sustainability report to be submitted annually and for the Council to consider this. The sustainability report, there was a link to it in the document, covers the period 2024, so we're looking a year behind. It was published on the 28th of June this year, and it's presented to the London Luton Airport Consultative Committee back in July, and it will be presented to the next meeting of the LAX Noise and Track Subcommittee in October. This report to OSB summarises key areas in the sustainability report for 2024 and provides an opportunity for members to scrutinise the performance of the airport operator from a planning perspective. The recommendation is that Overview and Scrutiny Board are asked to consider the sustainability report for 2024 and provide feedback on its presentation and content to help improve future reports in line with the requirements of the legal agreement. I will run through the report with a number of slides, and then in front of me are a number of representatives from London Luton Airport Limited, the Operations Limited, the operator of the airport, who, as with previous years, members end up asking questions for them on their sustainability report. This slide provides highlights that the airport operator has included in their 2024 report. Some of these will be picked up in subsequent slides. The sustainability report identifies the airport operator's priority issues and contains a lot of detail. There's 140 pages in this report. The airport operator reports on many positive things that occurred in 2024. However, I'm going to concentrate on things that are covered by the legal agreement. So that is noise, the travel plan, targets in the sustainability strategy, audit of the carbon reduction strategy, and then employment skills, recruitment, and the local procurement protocol. The legal agreement requires a sustainability report to provide data on a series of areas. So the first one here is the table. The red table shows you the number of passengers in 2024 was just under 17 million passengers, 16,735,000. So that is actually less. In 2019, the airport achieved 18 million passengers. So it's 7% down on that, but it is 3% up on the previous year. It also shows you that there were nearly 132,000 aircraft movements, which again is a 3% increase from the previous year. Let me just close that little window. Close the whole window. A key target for the airport operator is to increase the number of the next generation aircraft, since these aircraft are both more fuel efficient and also they're quieter than the older models. The sustainability report records that 60% of aircraft based at Luton are next generation aircraft. So that's the A320neo, the A321neo, and the Boeing 737 MAX 8s. They account for 36% of all movements at the airport. I've included that little contour graph in the report as well. One of the things it's showing you is it comes from the European Aviation Environmental Report, and it shows you what are called Chapter 3 aircraft, which are aircraft which were certified in 1997 onwards. That's the biggest line, which I think is red. Then the Chapter 4 aircraft were ones which were certified in 2006 onwards. That's the next line in, which I think is a navy blue. And then the Chapter 14 aircraft was certified from 2018 onwards, and that's the lighter blue colour. And then the smallest contour, where my mouse is sitting, is the newer generation aircraft. So that shows you that there's been an improvement in aircraft noise as certified by the International Civil Aviation Authority. So Luton Airport seeking to have more new generation aircraft, 60% of them or so, is significant in terms of keeping noise down. There are planning conditions covering the airport operation and the number of aircraft that they can have during the night period, the early morning shoulder period, and then there's also what's called a quota count, which is, again, each aircraft is designated a QC level, which the airport will be encouraging aircraft to use quieter aircraft, so QC1 and below. There is a 9,650 movement cap for the period between 11:30 at night and 6 o'clock in the morning, and the airport was under that cap at 9,396 total movements. The quota cap is 3,500 movements, and the airport was at 2,099, so well below that. And then for the early morning shoulder, there's a cap of 7,000 movements, and in 2024 the airport operated at 5,757 movements. Not shown on this screen is the information about the area covered by the 57 decibel daytime noise contour, which they have to report on, and also the 48 decibel nighttime noise contour. So in 2024, for daytime, they covered 15.4 square kilometres. The cap is 21.1 square kilometres, so they were well under that, and it's forecast to be under for 2025 as well. And the area for the nighttime noise contour was 34.7 square kilometres, and the cap is 42.1 square kilometres. So they were under that. Those are the two tables on the right. Since 2018, the airport operator has phased out aircraft operations by aircraft with a QC value of greater than 1 in the night period, so QC2 and above. So that's been since 2018. The table on the left confirms that in 2024, there were no aircraft of QC2 and above operating at night time. Continuous descent approach is shown on the little graph, the little drawing in the middle. It's a procedure that allows aircraft to descend smoothly rather than using multiple stages, thereby reducing fuel consumption, carbon emissions, and noise levels through the use of low thrust descent. The main carriers, Wizz Air, EasyJet, and Ryanair, are shown on the table on the right. They've achieved high levels of compliance, and overall, the airport achieved 94% compliance. The airlines achieved, sorry. The airport operates noise preferential routes. So you have westerly takeoff on the drawing on the bottom and easterly takeoff. An aircraft should stay within those routes. If an aircraft violates the routes, there can be a track violation and fines are imposed. But there can be, they get investigated, and if there's valid justification, such as air traffic control saying you need to move out of the route in order to avoid storm clouds, then that gets investigated and there isn't a fine imposed. In 2024, there were 55 track violations, which had fines of a total of £69,000. That's 55 movements out of a total of 131,000 plus movements. So it's very low, 0.04%, I think. So it's really small. The airport operator has set noise violation limits as well for departing aircraft, and aircraft that breach those violation limits also get fined. There were 3 daytime violations and 5 nighttime violations. Those resulted in £11,000 worth of fines. The fines for both the being off track and for noise violations go to the community trust fund, and that gets reinvested into the community. So the £69,000 and the £11,000 get reinvested into community projects. Not shown on any of my screens, but within the report, you will see there's a paragraph about, I think it's paragraph 18, about the noise insulation scheme operated by the airport. In 2024, 138 properties were insulated, and that was a total cost of £478,894. The airport also keeps logs of inquiries and complaints, which are these tables here. The sustainability report notes there was a significant decrease in the number of complaints in 2024 compared to the previous year. In part, you can put that down to the airport's strengthened approach to community engagement. So there was a Airspace and Noise Week, which was fairly well attended by residents from local area in 2024. There were also community surgeries. Total number of complaints in 2024 was a third of that in the previous year, in 2023. 10 individuals were still responsible for 90% of the complaints. So you had 5,932 complaints, 90% of those came from 10 people. The number of complainants for 2024 also halved compared to the previous year. The airport appointed a sustainable travel plan coordinator in 2024. He updated the travel plan that was submitted to the council and approved in 2024. Also, the airport surface access strategy was submitted and approved in 2024. Unfortunately, passenger travel by sustainable modes was down from 38% in 2023 to 29% in 2024. There is a target to reach of 47% of passengers using sustainable travel by 2028. So the drop of 9% is a concern. Partly it is due to the fact that in 2023 there was the fire in the multi-storey car park and the drop-off zone got relocated, which was less convenient. The Sustainable Travel Plan Coordinator has revamped the Transport Forum, and the Council's Head of Transport Services Strategy and Sustainability, sitting next to me, also sits on that and has been involved. It's much more proactive. The chart, the bar graph with the big red lines is staff travel to the airport. The airport has a target for 2028 of 37% of staff to travel by sustainable modes. The chart shows you that 27% are travelling by sustainable modes in 2024, which is actually up by 6% compared to the last survey in 2022. So that is an improvement. They need to hit 37% by 2028. On training, the Section 106 agreement promotes or encourages the airport to, it doesn't encourage, the Section 106 requires the airport operator to promote apprenticeships and graduate schemes to people living in the LU1 to LU4 postcodes. In 2024, the airport operator took on one new apprentice and rolls out its program for 5 apprenticeships a year in 2025, and I saw that advertised on their website for candidates to apply for apprenticeships. The airport operator exceeded the target of working with at least the target. There is a target in the sustainability report of working with at least 15 accredited mental health first aiders and safety ambassadors by 2028. In 2024, 84 employees were trained as first aiders and 24 as safety ambassadors. So that's exceeded that target. They've also got targets re psychological health and safety at work. And they achieved ISO 45003 3 years ahead of schedule, with Luton Airport becoming the first airport to achieve this accreditation. The sustainability report also records, and I haven't gone into the detail, but it does record that there's been significant improvements in mental health at the airport with because of the training, because of staff and managers being more aware. There's been less time off sick, greater support for staff. The airport operator has the target to increase the percentage of employees involved in volunteering to 25% by 2027. And in 2024, they had 12% of employees doing unpaid voluntary work in the community. That's a 9% increase on the previous year, 573 hours of voluntary work undertaken by their staff. I haven't included a section in a slide on air quality. There is a paragraph, there is a section in the report on air quality. The airport is required to monitor nitrogen dioxide, NO2, particulate matter, PM10s and PM2.5s. The airport has 6 real-time continuous air quality monitors now. All of them have recorded levels below or within the standards set by the UK's air quality strategy objectives. On this table, the table in front of you, this is about training and education program and working with local schools. The 4 or 5 rows at the bottom tell you that there were 200 students who were involved in the airport's Classroom to Careers program. They ran 10 workshops for schools. There were 10 schools, 200 students. Then separately on the right, you have information Oh, no, I won't do that yet. At the top of the table, there is information about the Community Trust Fund, with the airport providing £150,000 towards the Community Trust Fund. That bodies can apply from the local area for projects which involve improving health, upskilling, alleviating poverty. And then there's a separate one, which is the Greener Futures Fund, which provides towards groups dealing with biodiversity and carbon reduction. And that had £61,000 allocated towards it. The tables on the right are to do with the supply chain. The sustainability report records that there was £100 million spent on firms within 20 miles of the airport. That was 54% of the total airport spend on local companies. 284 suppliers from the local area. That represents 23% of all the suppliers at the airport. The airport in their sustainability report and their sustainability strategy, which was approved by the council, target 25% of their electricity to come from renewable sources by 2026. Since 2021, 100% of the airport's electricity has come from renewable sources. So they've achieved that target. They also target 100% LED use in airport operated buildings, internal areas. That's to be achieved by 2027. They are at 95% at the moment, so they've still got 2 years, but they were already 95% of the internal areas. 100% of the car parks have LED. They also are targeting the runways and taxiways by 2030, and progress has been made on that. For airport operated vehicles to be low carbon by 2030, they're making progress there. And you'll see the little drawing of a car with an electric charger. 88% of the vehicles have transitioned to low carbon alternatives already at the airport. So that includes things like the car park transfer buses. They also seek to reduce the resources used and waste generation. Unfortunately, in terms of water in 2024, their water use went up, but that is to do with the fact that the car park, the demolition of the car park required significant amounts of water. So the target for achieving 75% recycling by 2026 has been achieved in 2024, with 82% of waste at the airport being recycled. The sustainability report records significant progress has been made in terms of landing and takeoff emissions, which have been reduced by 9.5% per passenger compared to 2019, when they were operating at the 18 million passengers per year. And it's also down 3.6% compared to the previous year. This exceeds the target of 5% reduction from the baseline of 2019 that they were aiming for by 2026. Much of this can be attributed to the increase in the number of next generation aircraft operating at Luton. 60% of all aircraft based at Luton are next generation. And you'll see in the middle drawing, you've got Wizz have got 100%. Then you've got 57% of Ryanair's aircraft and 44% of EasyJet's based aircraft. The airport aimed to achieve the 60% target by 2028. So it's ahead of target at the moment. 88% of the fleet, the vehicle fleet is that was on the previous chart, is using low carbon fuel. 2024, the airport launched a new initiative, which is called its Electric Ground Support Equipment Trial, where at 5 aircraft stands, all the equipment was powered by battery. So auxiliary power units, electric tugs, electric baggage belts, electric passenger stairs. The airport is assessing the feasibility of rolling this out to all of its 45 stands. So at the moment, they've done a trial at 5, and I think there's interest at airports across the country in this trial. The airport is working with airlines to increase the use of sustainable aviation fuel to meet the government's sustainable aviation fuel mandate. That mandate requires by 2025, I think it's 2% of all UK aviation fuel demand to have been sustainable aviation fuel, and that increases in 2030 to 10% and in 2040 to 22%. One other thing that's required by the Section 106 is working with colleges, institutions in the area. And in 2024, the airport announced a partnership with Cranfield University, creating research projects and internships to explore decarbonising air travel and research into sustainable aviation fuel and zero ground emission operations. So that was a new project partnering with Cranfield University. The penultimate screen. The airport operator submitted the carbon reduction strategy to the council in February 2024. That was required by a planning condition. It set out the actions that it would take in order to achieve the net zero carbon by 2040 for all direct airport operations. Many of the actions already described are directed at reducing carbon emissions. Whether those are direct emissions from the airport operator, what's called Scope 1, the indirect ones, such as the supply of electricity, Scope 2, or emissions from others, including the airlines or passengers travelling to or from the airport, Scope 3. The sustainability report records that total reported carbon emissions did increase in 2024 compared to the previous year by 1%. But if you remember, passenger numbers and aircraft movements had increased by at least 3%. This is still 4% lower than in 2019. However, Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, where the airport operator has greater control, were 28% lower than the baseline in 2019. And in 2024, the airport maintained level 4 transformation, which comes from the ACI, Airport Council International, which gives out carbon accreditation schemes. This was first achieved by the airport in 2023. So in 2023, it achieved level 4, and it's carried on in 2024. The final screen. This is employment, which should be interesting for the council. The numbers employed in and around the airport have increased by 14% in 2024 to 13,800. And you can see the graph on the right shows you what's happened since 2015. It's increased by 45% since 2015. So 2014 was when planning permission was granted for the airport to increase to its passenger numbers to 18 million passengers. So from that point on, the number of employees has increased by 45%, with the biggest increase obviously being this past year. In terms of training skills and recruitment, the airport's environmental education program has seen 200 students benefit from their essential skills workshops. The airport's comprehensive training in customer care for frontline staff has now been extended to third-party employees. And the airport has achieved level 3 in the ACI's Airport Customer Experience Accreditation. The airport offers leadership training through its core skills training program, and 185 employees have benefited from that. 97% of managers have received training via the airport's wellbeing strategy, with the consequence, as I said before, that staff mental health has improved, days off work decreased. In 2024, some 51% of new employees came from within the LU1 to LU7 postcodes, 49% from LU1 to LU4 postcodes. Sorry, I didn't realize my screen had stopped sharing.
Just minimize it.
Which?
No, minimize this. No, this one. No.
Sorry about that. 54% of the supply chain spend was within 20 miles. So there are two different figures in this sustainability report. One covers people within 20 miles and one covers within 25 miles. So on one, you will see that there's 110 million pounds spent on the supply chain within 25 miles, 100 million within 20 miles. So that is a summary of the elements of the sustainability report which are relevant from the planning legal agreement requirements that the airport has to report on. Obviously, if you've looked at the 140-page report, you will see that there's a lot more in there and that it goes into a lot more depth, and it reports on factors that the airport is interested in and wants other people to know as well. So we do have members from the airport operator here as well, should members have questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just before we get to the questions, so just a couple of ground rules. When you are asking a question, can you please make sure it's simple and direct? No speeches, please, and just make sure it's relevant to the subject area as well. Can I have a show of hands of who wants to ask a question? Okay, let me call your names out and then you can put your hands down. I've got Councillor Lee, Councillor Tom, anybody else? Councillor Begum and Councillor Steve. Councillor Hussain, sorry. You're sitting in such a position, you're out of sight for a time. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Councillor Lee, Leebridge.
Thanks, Chair. Regarding the figures reported on surface access, so obviously we've seen the reduction from 38% to 29%. In relation to the use of cars, how is that figure monitored? Is it based on drop-off, car drop-offs at the drop-off point? Because if it is, then it's probably a slightly inaccurate figure, because I know that in my ward we have lots of airport parking, lots of people parking in residential area to get a taxi or whatever to the airport. So I would wager that the car use is a lot larger than stated. Can you clarify that, please?
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. And may I just first thank David for an excellent report, and thank you for inviting us here this evening. In direct response to the question about how we monitor the proportion of traffic, be that by private vehicle, rail, bus or coach or taxi, it's undertaken by the Civil Aviation Authority, who do a continuous survey inside the terminal building. And then obviously at the end of the year, it's then weighted on the basis of the responses that they've been given.
Okay, thanks. So that's via a questionnaire to passengers, is it? Or
so it's continuous survey by individuals who are based inside the terminal building. That's what happens across all UK airports, or all major UK airports. It's conducted independently by the Civil Aviation Authority, and they have a specific target to meet to ensure that the sample that they survey is representative of all passengers in terms of those using the airport.
Thank you. Can I ask another question, Chair? Thank you. The report also mentions reviewing the parking pricing to incentivize the use of green, electric or hybrid cars. What would that likely look like in terms of, would you be looking at offering reduced prices for electric cars, or would you be looking at putting the prices up for normal internal combustion engine cars? And how would you, again, mitigate against those increased prices pushing people into residential areas?
Yeah, so the incentive scheme we have for people with electric vehicles is a reduction on the tariff that's published. So it's not increasing the tariff for everybody else. It's a genuine reduction for those driving an electric vehicle. As for incentivizing or discouraging people from parking off-site, of course, it's in our interest to have people parking on-site. So we actively work with the council, with Anthony and the team and other providers, transport providers, to ensure that we're offering the best possible offering both at the airport and off-site. I can't quantify or refer to the situation you're describing, but that's not in our interest to see people parking on curbs.
And if I may just add in there, we do offer free drop-off services in our long stay car park, for example, where you can park for an hour free of charge. So those options do exist alongside the current drop-off areas.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Your CO2 emissions are going down, projected to go down from just over 7,000 to 300 by 2040. The first 25% was always easy because that's surface vehicles moving around. Just by changing the fuel on them, you could achieve that 25%. Can someone spend a couple of minutes explaining what more you're going to do to get down to just 300 tonnes by 2040? Because it seems to me the hardest bit is what's coming forward now after you've done the easy gas, diesel, all that kind of stuff. That's the first one.
Very good question, Councillor, and good evening, everyone. I'm David Vasquez, Head of Sustainability for the airport. We include in the report a comprehensive net zero roadmap, which outlines the key initiatives that the airport needs to implement between now and 2040 to become net zero. They include, as you say, some actions that we're able to accelerate, like vehicles. About 85% for vehicles are already either electric or they run on HVO fuel. And then there's some other initiatives that are perhaps we're tackling further down the line, such as heating. Heating is one of the main sources of emissions for the airport, and we're tackling that in the coming years. But in effect, what you have is a range of initiatives. You have vehicles, heating, buses, generators, energy efficiency, and renewables. Those are the main initiatives that we outline between now and 2040. And we have a very clear roadmap that is aligned with industry standards. And we have it recently recognized by the Airport Camera Accreditation with level 4, which is one of the highest accolades. So that is the plan for the airport on net zero, and we're very serious about it.
The plan's not explained that way, but can you tell me one of your biggest problems at the moment is surface generators for the planes? That's what gives off a lot of emissions, a lot of noise. What is happening, and when do you plan to have the surface generators replaced?
Sorry, can you clarify what you mean by surface generators? Are you on about the ground handling equipment? Yeah, great. Well, David actually referred to a trial that I believe we're the world's first, but perhaps there are others globally that have done it, which is looking to switch those generators from a diesel generator into an electrified version. Of course, the benefits of that not only bring in reductions in emissions, but also significantly quieter. So we've implemented that on 5 stands across the airport in 2024, and that's a trial that we're now looking to make permanent and roll out across the entire airport. And that's something that we hope to be able to break news on very shortly. And just further to David's point about driving down our emissions, I think another really exciting project that hopefully we're only months away from starting is a very significant solar scheme on site at the airport, which would be allow us to generate around 25% of the airport's energy requirements from electricity created on site at the airport. So lots of exciting things, some big, some small, some easy, some hard, but they're all happening.
Solar panels getting a little bit old fashioned now when you got these new gas turbines from America. So I suggest you look at some other stuff. There's one worrying bit in the report. You said you've done 127 houses up under the airport scheme for insulation and everything else, but you spent 300,000 doing up 127 houses. That seems to be an awful lot of money for each property. I'm not sure whether you're getting value for money for that. Can someone explain that?
Hello, yes, I'm Nicole Pryor. I'm head of flight operations at the airport. So we have a noise insulation scheme. It's been running since 2016. And so far we've actually spent £2 million insulating homes under that scheme. Currently it's £4,900 per property, which tends to be a couple of windows, or if someone's got a bay window. So it does have really positive feedback and does make a difference to people's homes, which is a really good scheme.
You say 127 and 300,000, that's what's in the report. It just doesn't seem to stack up financially.
Yeah, so it is good value for money. It has been competitively tendered with a range of different companies bidding. So and the final stage of our procurement process is always best and final offer. So it is always competitively tendered, and we do think that we're getting a good.
4,900.
And £4,900 per property is the highest amount that we've offered. So it's
Don't get me wrong, I appreciate it. And just the figures concern me a bit, but how much have you liaised with the council's housing department, which is for our own stock? Because part of Farley Hill is under the flight path, and so far I don't believe any of the work's been done on those properties, has it? You're the councillor.
No.
No. But how much liaison's going on between the housing department of the council and yourselves so that we can speed up the installation of our tenanted stock in the Farley Hill area? Not just
yes.
Farley Hill, we've got tenanted stock everywhere in the town. But
So the eligibility for the noise insulation scheme is based on a noise contour around the airport. There's some areas of Farley Hill that fit into that, but it's not all of it. We have a really good relationship with the housing officers and at the council, because they're really helpful for us to get a lot of properties insulated all at once. So we do have a good relationship with them, and as soon as we find out and that they're eligible, they're very good at giving us the permissions that we need to insulate them. Likewise, when we send out the next batch of letters, they will check their files to see whether any of them are council owned.
so when can the residents of Farley and the top of South, what qualify, actually expect to see those letters coming through their door, and the council as well, because a lot of those properties are tenanted properties through the council? When can we expect to see those letters going through the door telling those people they qualify and this is the work you qualify for? Just a date roughly.
So by the end of this week, we'll have sent out letters for everyone that's eligible under the scheme, all of the residential properties.
The employment, I've got some more, I'll ask it another time on suppliers, but on the employment thing, the Council Franks asked at the last meeting, or I know one of your part, why can't we get a breakdown and the Luton postcode areas of the employees at the airport? We haven't got that, but I'd have thought that would have been pretty simple for you to do.
Thank you. We're really proud, actually, and hopefully you did pick up on the stat that David provided. So if we explicitly look at postcodes LU1 to LU4, which I think in this room are the ones most important, 50% of our staff come from one of those postcodes. So half of the airport pass holders, so of 10,000 people that walk around with an airport pass, 50% of those are from an LU1 to 4 postcode. And that's not happened by chance. We work really closely with the council in lots of employment initiatives, making sure that we've got local jobs for local people.
In that question, because the LU4 people, you've still got so many traffic movements right across the town. If the LU4 people, if we could find a form of sustainable transport for them to get from there to the work at the airport. If you live on Lucy Farm, you're working at the airport, you've got two ways to do, 2 buses, a train from Leagrave down to Parkway, a train up there. Well, if we could find a better sustainable way for those people from Chorley, Lucy, Powys, all that area, it'll cut down the traffic movements, what Councillor Bidgin was talking about. and be better for the town and the people themselves.
Couldn't agree
That's
more.
what I'd like to.
Yeah.
I'd like to explore further down the line if there's a way we can do that.
So we are actually in dialogue with the council because we couldn't agree with you more. What we'd really like to see is a demand responsive transit. So it doesn't have to be a large coach on a timetable. It could just be responding to the demand on a much smaller vehicle in a much more dynamic way. They're all the conversations that we're having. We absolutely welcome the opportunity to work with the council and Luton Rising to bring that about.
Thank you. Councillor Begum.
Thank you. A follow-up question actually from Tom's, because I've already got it highlighted on my thing. So you say that 51% of your employment force at the airport is from LU1 to LU4 postcodes, but the remainder 49% is from LU7, which is slightly further afield, slightly different borough as well. In terms of how things are distributed, I'm just wondering, what is the actual breakdown of these people in terms of the positions that they hold? Because I quite often find, or I'm wondering actually, I'm quite curious to see whether those people that are employed from LU1 to LU4 are in lower positions and those at LU7 are at a higher position. So I would like to see not just an ethnicity breakdown of what all of this looks like, but at the same time, I'd like to know what positions of seniority, because what we tend to find is people from these postcodes from Luton don't tend to be able to compete in the same way as everybody else. That's my first question.
Okay, thank you. Neil Bradford, I'm Head of Communications. Getting data for the entire airport for all our suppliers is very challenging. So, there are various mechanisms where we can get indicators. In terms of those that work directly for us as the airport operator, as we've said, 51% of those live in LU1 to LU4. Of those 51%, around 10% are in managerial roles. And the average salary for a London Luton Airport operations employee is around the £39,000 mark. That's before profit share, before bonuses, before overtime, before pensions and all the other benefits that come with it. So that's the data that we have to do with London Luton Airport operations. And within those postcode areas, we've had around 21 or more living in LU1 or LU4 who've gone forward on our impact development program. That's a scheme that we run within the airport, giving people leadership development training so that they're more able to have opportunities to get those more senior roles. But getting a picture for every business on the airport is very tricky and very challenging. So it's only ever going to be indicators.
And what about LU7 then? Do you have the figures for LU7 postcode?
We've got figures for all LU postcodes. 61% of our employees live in LU1 LU postcode. So that's LU1 all the way through to LU7. So that obviously takes into account Houghton Regis, Dunstable, Leighton Buzzard.
Okay, that doesn't really quite answer my question, because 1 minute you're telling me LU1 to LU4, 10% are in managerial positions.
Yes, 10%.
But then you're not telling me how many or what percentage of people are in managerial positions from LU7.
I don't have that figure in front of me, but my understanding is obviously we're talking about Luton postcodes in this committee. That's where you're of most interest to you. And I can tell you that within Luton Airport Operations Limited, 10% of those employees who live in the LU1 to LU4 postcodes are in managerial roles.
Thank you for that, but I'm still not satisfied with the answers, purely because if you're going to put it in the report, then I'd like to see everything. If it's not in the report, then that's fair enough. LU7 don't count to me. Like you said, my interest is only in LU1 to LU4, but yet you've given me a figure of 49% of your employment force is from LU7. So then that sparks my interest of how many of those people are in that management position and how do they compare to those people of Luton? I don't think it's unreasonable, given the fact that there's already a spark of that information in the report. I'd like to see the full, but I'll move on to my next question, if that's okay. Okay, so on page 18, point 32.4, you say that you've got an increasing number of people that are doing some voluntary hours. again, I'd like to know what the ethnic background of those volunteers is in terms of the hours that they're doing voluntarily, who are staff members. So they're donating some of their time to airport. But I'd also like a breakdown of how many of those people are LU1 to LU4 and then the rest as well.
That's a very good question. And it is a very important area, volunteering and our community work. And I understand your interest in learning more about LU1 to LU4 postcodes. We don't hold that data, but we can tell you more about the programs we have and the amounts of investment that we make and how comprehensive the programs are. So in 2024 alone, we've raised £100,000 for our charity partners. And as you know, one of them was Luton Food Bank, providing a very important service for the town. And that was a record year. But over the partnerships with them, we raised £300,000, which is not an insignificant amount. And then above that, as you know, we have the commitment to invest £150,000 on the Community Trust Fund, which is a foundation that then distributes about £10,000 of grants for projects that serve the community. And we went above and beyond and invested a further £61,000 in a new fund that we created independently, which we call the Greener Future Fund, which then tops it up to 211 from 150 commitments. So I think this is just some, and this is data that's in the report that shows how we go above and beyond in these programs. We don't have the data LU1 to L4 postcodes, but it's something we take on board and we can look into for future reports and conversations. Thank you.
Just jump in there. So Neil Thompson, COO for the airport. We also give every member of staff 2 days off for volunteering a year, so they can choose whether to use those or not. So I think and they're very successful, so they can participate not just in the airport charities, but other local interests as well. So it's a very popular scheme, and I think there's very high uptake of that scheme.
And if I can just add on the volunteering as well, it's not just, you know, boots on the ground, working at the food bank or redecorating a youth hall. It's not just that kind of volunteering. It goes right the way through the business. I sit as a pro bono non-executive director at the Bedfordshire Chamber of Commerce. One of our community team is a school governor in Luton, and so it goes on. And we've also got members of the management team that sit on the Bedfordshire and Luton Community Foundation board. And what we try to do through our charity partnerships, which this year is with one of them is Toco, the youth space hub, is we try to we will use them for hiring their space, for example, for team meetings, but we'll also provide them the expertise in terms of marketing, in terms of communication support or operational support. So we try and give at all levels.
Thank you for your answers. It doesn't quite answer my question, but I do see where you're taking the narrative a little bit in terms of answering the question. I don't deny anything that you are doing. You are doing some fantastic work in terms of everything that you are giving back to the community. So thank you very much for that. And I do recognise it, but it still doesn't answer my question because the reason why I'm asking these difficult questions is because I've had a lot of difficult questions this week. So sorry to take it out on you guys. But where I work with a lot of students from St Albans and Welwyn, the perception of Luton is very, very bad at the moment, all right? That it's been described as, and I'm not going to use the words by students of what it is, but it's an absolute not pleasant, okay? It's not pleasant, but yet we are, if you like, we are so bad, but yet we do employ people from other LU postcodes, even if it's not part of Luton, it is part of Central Beds Council or whatever it is, but we still also put into their community funds as well. But yet nobody ever seems to hear that. But yet when it comes to mentioning the word Luton, we are put down. And to me, despite whatever issues we have with parking, which is never going to go away, and we can't ever verify, just for yourself, Councillor Bridgen, we can't really verify who's parked where and what purpose for, really. But there is lots that you guys are doing in terms of an airport, but yet we don't see that materialise. Doesn't matter how much money you plug into the community at Stevenage, at Leighton Buzzard, wherever it is, it's still looked upon, like Luton is still frowned upon.
Councillor Begum, I'm asking a question.
Well, that's the reason I wanted to explain why I was asking them those difficult questions, although they haven't been able to answer it today.
We
Thank
will wrap that up in a recommendation at the end. Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I have 5, but fairly short questions, I hope. So let me start with the first one. I will take a slightly different approach to Councillor Shaw about the about the grants given for noise insulation. As I understand it, it's about 4,000. Once the expansion, if the expansion takes place, it immediately jumps up to between 15 to 20,000. It costs around about £15,000 now to fully insulate a house to stop the majority of the noise taking place. So do you not think that you are not really being very generous? Because the £4,000 that you're talking about now will probably insulate 2 windows, perhaps 3. The noise is still coming through the rest of it. So why is it going to be the case, perhaps from day one, once expansion takes over, that Luton Rising will be offering up to £20,000 whilst you're actually sticking, or perhaps if you're talking somewhere like Watergate Gardens, you're talking about £6,000. It's not generous and it doesn't do the job properly. So why is it set at that level when it isn't really acting as a proper insulation towards the people that are under the flight path?
Yes, so thank you for your question. So the amount is £4,900 per property, which is the highest amount that we've offered since 2016 per property. And it's relative to the amount of passengers and the amount of movements that we have at the airport currently. When the airport grows as part of the development consent order, the number of movements increases, the number of passengers increases, and therefore the contribution for the noise insulation scheme per property also increases, which is why there's a difference between the development consent and the current grant.
Those residents that are completely under the flight path to try to insulate against noise to the maximum.
Yeah, I mean, the scheme we offer was first set by the Section 106 agreement when we had planning permission, the financial level. And it's in line with many other airports offer similar amounts for that amount of property. But I think the important thing is that everyone that's benefited from the scheme, we've had really positive feedback about. It's around habitable bedrooms, other rooms in the house they choose to insulate, and the feedback we have is excellent.
Okay, I'm not satisfied with the answer, but nevertheless, if I go and look at point 13, paragraph 13 on the report, and at first glance, it looks like we're really doing really well with 60% of the aircraft being of the new type. But when I look at the page over, it seems that they only account for 36% of all movement. So are we really doing that well? If it's a case that 60% of the aircraft are of the new type, but only account for 36% of the movements.
Yeah, we're proud of the figures we've achieved. We're constantly working with airlines to increase the amount of modernisation. Luton has one of the most modernised fleet in the whole of Europe. So we've worked tirelessly to try to achieve those targets, and which is why the noise levels are where they're at today, because actually the aircraft is so much quieter than the older generation. And and the measures we have in place as part of the planning consents we have at the moment, we have to continuously reduce the contours. We've got a contour reduction in 2028 and again in 2031, and we have to hit those modernisation targets in order to meet those contour levels. But I think Luton's leading the way for fleet modernisation at the moment.
I'll come back to the contours in a minute. Can I just ask, for planes that are taking off to the west, how many planes are being fined for not making their first turn to the south at 1,030 feet, and therefore actually taking a flight path directly up Cutenho Road or out towards Manor Park. Sorry, out towards Memorial Park.
Just to clarify, the turn isn't at 1,030 feet. It's above 500 feet above aerodrome level. So they can't start that turn before 500 feet above the aerodrome.
But okay.
So and then they have to, as
well, I was told before that it was 1,030.
No,
So
it's after 1,030. It's 500 feet above aerodrome level. But the
image figure I was given was wrong then.
The image that David showed, where we got the noise preferential swathes, they have to stay within those swathes, otherwise they get fined.
Okay, well let me continue with that, even if it's at that level that you're suggesting. How many planes have been fined over this year, if you like, and over the last year for actually not doing that turn and continuing up Cutenho Road across the houses and adding to the noise?
So we don't have the data on the exact number that have deviated from the flight path at that point, but there was 55 across the year, which was 0.4% of all departures that left all of the departure routes. Even if they turn a little bit later and don't turn at that certain height, they still usually stay within the noise preferential route corridors, which is why we have the corridor rather than a straight line. So they can move slightly north and they can move slightly south, further away from South Luton.
So I understand that NPR actually covers both takeoff and landing. So I would like to ask, will you be supporting an airspace review? Because I've looked at the maps. I've looked at the current route that the planes take. They go across Memorial Park, then they go across into Cutenho Road, then go straight. If you actually take a line slightly further south across Stockwood Park and then go direct, it would take the planes still lining up with the runway, but it would take the planes across Capability Green. So I'm wondering why that hasn't happened. I do understand that the details go into the computers at Pitstone, but why that adjustment hasn't been made to actually lower the amount of noise that the residents would. So unless I'm wrong in the lineup that I have done, it appears that that line would take the planes slightly further south over Stockwood Park, not needing to go over Memorial Park, but take a direct approach through to the runway.
Yeah, to make any airspace change, we have to follow an airspace change process that's controlled by the CA. And you can't just look at Luton in isolation. You have to look at all of the London airports. The whole of airspace across the UK is designed that if there's radio failure, aircraft will still miss each other. So
my question really is, will you be supporting that change?
So we're part of the airspace modernisation programme at the moment. That programme is frustratingly slow. So this is looking at the whole of the London airspace from the south coast to the Midlands. And we're working with that. And I think we're trying to get the most efficient flight routes for Luton to get aircraft much higher sooner, because Luton has one of the quietest fleets that are out there, but those aircraft aren't being allowed to fly if they're designed to do, because the airspace holds them down for much longer than necessary at the moment.
Actually looks at what I'm suggesting is to follow that line through slightly further over south over Stockwood Park, and then look to see if it lines up to the runway.
Is this for arrivals?
Andrew Lambourne has done it. Ladican has done the same.
Could you clarify if it's arrivals or departures?
Pardon?
Are you talking about arriving aircraft or departing aircraft?
Arriving, yeah.
No, arriving aircraft have to line up with the runway. So
no, but I'm saying it does line up with the runway. If the planes aren't further over at the moment, they're in a situation when they have to go over Memorial Park. If they were flying slightly further south over Stockwood Park, they could still line up.
No, they can't. So it's a straight line for the runway out.
It's a straight line.
No, because it can't be an angle. So
it's not an angle. It's a straight line.
We can have a chat outside of this, but
so have a look at it anyway. My next question, very quickly, Chair, is very nice to hear about all of the air quality monitors that you have around the airport. What have you done about air quality monitors for NOx, SOx, and particulates for residents that are under the runway, under the flight path?
Thank you for your question. air quality is a very important issue for the airport. I would say that taking into account the monitors that the airport has, Luton Rising and the council, we will probably have one of the most comprehensive monitoring programs of any airport in the UK, or one of them. We've been monitoring for a number of years, and I would say that performance is very strong. The levels are well below national air quality objectives for all three main pollutants, PM10, NO2, and PM2.5. And then for reference, our annual PM10 average was 14 micrograms per cubic meter, and that is compared against a limit in the UK of 40. So we're well below within the limits.
Doesn't answer my question. That's taken at the airport. I'm asking what you have done to put in monitors under the flight path so that residents can be aware of what they are taking in on a daily basis.
We have monitors located in a variety of locations. We don't have a specific report.
Let me stop you there. So can you send me, please, a list of where a map showing where those monitors are?
I know your question, which we will look into. I can't assure you that we have a specific report that will address that level of detail, but we can provide you more information into the monitoring program that we have that includes that and other areas.
Sorry, you're sending me a map showing where all those monitors are?
Excuse me?
So you said that you're sending me a map showing where all those monitors are?
We have 17 points across the airport and local area. We have those. That Luton Rising has some, and the council has some as well. We monitor a lot of the areas around the airport, relevant areas from an air quality perspective. We do it from the perspective of improving air quality. This is not so much from a noise perspective, but from an air quality perspective. And the reports that we produce and recommendations are built on those locations. They're distributed. They're not focused on a specific area. So I'm not sure that I can guarantee the level of information you are asking for within the flight path. It includes the flight path, but other areas as well, because our goal is to understand air quality more broadly. How does it affect citizens? How does it affect broader sort of
well, that won't satisfy my residents, but anyway, thank you for the answer.
If I could help Councillor Stevens, Chair. If Kat is at the back, she can give you a map of every monitoring station in the whole of Luton, and there's quite a lot at the top of London Road. They're published every year, and that map's available to any councillor, and I think there's 42 in the town at the moment. 42 or 44.
Well, thank you. I didn't ask you. I'm
just giving you a bit of information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Asking for your
Councillor Stevens, thank you.
Councillor Shaw.
We need to move on. Thank you very much.
My last point, please.
You have one more? Okay,
And,
make it quick,
and
please.
that is
Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. And that is to do with working together with institutions. Very good to see what you're doing in working with different institutions. I'm wondering what we are doing to try to encourage pilots from the local area. So, for example, I know that the University of Hertfordshire has a aircraft management program together with pilot studies. It would be good to try to encourage those completing pilot studies to try and get involved with the airport, and perhaps to have a dialogue with Bedfordshire University to see if they might put on a similar program, so that not only are we encourage people to get into management, into retail, but perhaps into the actual flights themselves.
I mean, it's a very good point, but obviously as an airport, we don't employ pilots directly. What some of our airlines, though, like EasyJet and Wizz Air, and indeed Jet2, who've recently set up a base in Luton, they are investing a lot in recruiting for pilots, as well as cabin crew. You may have seen their recruitment advertising at the end of summer targeting school leavers. Jet2 offer a program where pilots can apply for a place on their training program that would not otherwise be able to access them. So those from deprived backgrounds. And there are some smaller initiatives in Luton which we do combine with and promote. There's a fantastic flight simulator on the airport footprint called Voyager Flight Simulator. They're organising groups for women in aviation, for young people, for those from deprived backgrounds, and they're doing lots of work in that area. And so we do our best to promote that. In terms of the University of Beds and local education institutions, we work very closely with Barnfield College on our apprenticeship programme. We're also working with the University of Beds on implementing AI technology throughout the airport. But pilot specifically wouldn't necessarily be something for us. That would be for our partners. And of course, we would be the sort of help amplify those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. We have taken quite a long time on this agenda item, so any remaining questions, can we keep them fairly quick, please? Councillor Hussain.
I won't take as long as Councillor Stevens, I can guarantee you that. I think my question really is pick up and, drop off is improved quite tremendously. But we still got, the car park that's up the hill where people are still dragging the suitcases with the children. And that really, in terms of the coaches, drop them right at the bottom, and then it's very difficult to get up to the top. It would be a huge improvement if we can get that, that they go right up the top and then come down and drop passengers. So it's easier for families to when they're parked up that part of the town.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a difficult few years following the car park fire in Terminal Car Park 2, as you can imagine. But we've responded really well as an organisation in putting in temporary solutions. You'll be pleased to hear that the car park has been rebuilt and is very near to completion. In fact, the topping out ceremony was in June, so we'll be opening that in the next few weeks. That will, of course, provide a further 1,900 parking spaces, and will move the drop-off area closer to the terminal. And as part of that, there'll be a whole review of the sort of parking operation and drop-off options. So watch this space. We'll have some news on that soon.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Councillor Ajisola.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your report, 2024 report, which has been very helpful. And first and foremost, I think you start on congratulations for the ACI awards, which I think you've done very well on that aspect, and of course celebrating that with the your staffs. So I want to understand, the report has captured your partnership with Cranfield University. I don't know, if you tell us more about the partnership, are you planning to do more partnership with other institutions within the county, like University of Bedfordshire? That's my first question.
Thank you for the question. We have recently agreed a partnership with Cranfield of 3 years, and that is to collaborate in a number of areas. Both institutions, Cranfield and the airport, appreciate the complexity surrounding aviation, and some of those challenges can only be tackled by collaboration. That's why we work very closely with our partners, Luton Rising and the council, and of course organisations like Cranfield, who will have a range of very capable individuals that we want to tap on. We have programmes ranging from projects that we collaborate with our students on, issues that relate to the airport on a day-to-day basis, then more complex sort of challenges for the airport that we then embed with Cranfield into a more structured program. It's early days into the partnership, but I think we have a track record of working with universities and colleges, as my colleague has just described, University of Beds and then Cranfield College. We have relaunched the apprentices scheme, which is bringing 6 apprentices to the airport. In the coming weeks, really exciting. We have done the interviews and the whole process recently. We have created a range of programs to engage really young people from early ages all the way up to when they get into work. We call that program Classroom to Careers, and it's really meant to be tapping onto every Lutonian as they go through the various stages in their lives. So we work with schools, colleges. So we have a program that we're very proud of, and we can give you more information on. But those are the bases that then will help us with delivering more local jobs for local people. I think that's the foundation. It starts with education and targeting young people.
You very much. I think that's one to watch out for, classroom to careers, or as you've mentioned. My second question quickly is about representation. In as much as I believe in qualification, experience, I want to know if there is a commitment to see this management. Like you've come here today and are looking at how you've sat here, gorgeously, presenting, which is very fine. It could be much more better, my opinion, if I see the diverse representation of my town, of Luton, within all of you here as well. Is there a commitment by your management team to have this in place? Thank you.
Absolutely. We recognise that diversity is really important for our workforce. We recognise that it's not just ethnicity, it's disability, sexual orientation, gender. We have limited data at the moment as to who's in those positions, as I alluded to earlier. We carried out a survey earlier this year. The response rate was around 15%. So it is just an indicator. But our current survey indicates around 25% of our employees at London Luton Airport operations identify as non-white. We hope to see improved response rate over time as we get more data points. But that's the indication we have at the moment. And in terms of developing our own talent, we talked about our impact program, which is very much about getting anyone within the business, whatever level, whether they're a security officer or whether they're working in the head office functions, to give them the skills, to give them the opportunities, to give them a platform to grow. And so we're very much committed to building on that. And then going back into that sort of local recruitment, all of our jobs that we advertise for the operator are first sent to Luton Council and Luton Rising to advertise before we go out to any other external platform. We continue to work with the council on unlocking as many opportunities as we can. We are part of the Vauxhall Task Force, as you may know, so trying to help people who've lost their jobs through the closure of Stellantis. We work closely with the Launch Group, the DWP. In fact, we've given a desk to Luton Job Centre in our head office so that they can interact directly, not just with our HR team, but also partners, concessionaires, suppliers. We've taken DWP work coaches through a sort of induction program so they know what working at the airport is like, and provided a guide for them. And we've also guaranteed interviews for the apprentice scheme for care leavers. So there's an awful lot of work that we're doing behind the scenes with Luton Council, with Luton Rising, to make sure that we are getting as many local people the opportunity as possible. But a lot of that work starts before the job interview. It starts in the classroom, and that's the other strand of the Classroom to Careers programme.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the excellent report. It's very thorough and detailed. So I'm going to ask a similar question to Councillor Ajisola, and just want a deeper explanation. I think you're doing great stuff. I know that you've said that you've had one apprentice and you've also been reaching out to different schools and educational institutions. I wanted to know how far that reaches and what programs you're sort of introducing in areas of high deprivation like Dallow, Farley, Hightown, and these sort of areas, and whether there's you have partnerships with schools or anything there, kind of like the details on that, just if you could explain that a little bit better.
Thank you for the question. The programme Castle to Careers is something we're very proud of. We work very closely with Luton Rising and the council to ensure that we reach schools. We're engaging directly with local schools and head teachers. I think that's something very important for us to then be able to access those programs, to build awareness at careers at the airport. and specifically on the areas that you've mentioned, we do appreciate there's a focus for the airport in those areas, and we can reach them through collaborating with people in this room and local councils. So I believe that there's so much we can do in terms of promoting these programs within the community, and there is a role also within this room to echo and amplify our messages so they reach to the schools in the town and beyond. So I do feel there's perhaps a need for a stronger collaboration, and we are open arms for more ideas to further reach those schools and teachers and eventually children, which is what this program is for.
Thank you. I mean, if that information can be passed over to me, I'm more than happy to disseminate that information over. My second question and final question, I promise, is around the role of women in aviation and what we're doing to upskill women in aviation, and not just flying and pilots, but generally what are we doing in that space, and whether we're taking any responsible action for that.
Well, I think the same applies to the answer I gave about diversity. Diversity isn't just ethnicity; it's gender, it's sexuality, etc. And so internally, the impact program, our leadership development program, is really about bringing those talented people to the fore, and then through the career pathway programs that we talked about, the career to classroom to careers program, that's about opening up opportunities for local residents. We signed the Women in Aviation Charter several years ago, and it is something as an industry that we are aware is a challenge and needs focus, and it is something that we're keen to crack.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now we're gonna go on to comments, but can you make them relevant and very, very brief, please? Because we've spent a lot of time on this agenda item and you've had plenty of time to ask questions. So is there any comments? Councillor Shaw.
I talk later about how quick we're operating on doing our tenancy stock in Luton with the grants that are available, because now tenancy stock is in every ward of the town. And the second one is I would like to see that breakdown as soon as possible of employment by the postcodes. So then our sustainability people at the council can work alongside yourselves to see if there's a way of transporting those people across from LU4 up to the airport, and find out the best way of doing that for our environment and the airport's environment, and for the welfare of those people as well.
So can I just clarify, Councillor Shaw, is that you want break down everyone in LU1? These are the numbers for LU2, these are numbers for LU3, these are the numbers for LU4. Fine.
Sounds odd, but it's the old Vauxhall plan where they used to run the buses an hour before the shift started from Lucy Farm and from Marsh Farm. Yeah. It worked, and they're getting down just in time for the shift and that kind of stuff. I know two people that work night shifts at the airport in one of your restaurants, cafes, and they go to Leagrave, get a train they park the car or walk to Leagrave, one of them, get the train down to Parkway, get on the Dartford Parkway up to the airport. Surely there's a better way than them doing that for a low paid employee. And that's all I'm looking for, see if there is a better way.
Can I just add on to that? Because there was a question around procurement and having a breakdown of procurement as well as employment. But just to keep it very brief, can we cover off procurement and apprenticeships that LLA are offering? Just so that in the next report, we've got a very good breakdown in terms of the number of employees, how many local businesses are procured, and how many apprentices are local within these postcodes. That'd be great if you can do that.
Just on procurement, you will have seen in the report that procurement is broken down by a 20-mile radius. we sometimes measure for other reports in a 25-mile radius. If you take the slightly wider radius, 60% of our supply chain is within a 25-mile radius. 110 million pound supply chain spend, around 300 businesses within that 25 miles. That's 70 more than in 2023. I don't know whether we've got specific LU1 and LU4 data, but I can give you some company names that we have contracts with. That's useful to the committee.
When you pass that information over, I mean, for all of our efforts, I mean, Luton is only about 5 miles long, so 20 miles is quite a huge. I mean, for us as an authority to look at things and as councillors to look at what the cost benefits, etc., are with the airport, a bit more further breakdown would be useful. But again, we can take this off and get some more clarifications if you guys require outside of this meeting.
Can I just provide a quick point of clarification, which is we'll work really hard to provide all the evidence you're looking for, but we can obtain the data related to the organisation that we represent, which is the airport operator, but we will be one of hundreds of organisations that operate in and around the airport. We won't have that level of transparency for those others. So it's just making sure the committee understands what we can and can't provide.
No, that's fine. I mean, we're being reasonable here. We're not asking you for the whole data set. We understand it's a very complex, network of businesses that operate. We are interested in yourselves rather than everything else around you. But if there is data available, it's useful for as much as you can reasonably gather. Councillor Begum.
Just a quick comment. You mentioned earlier that you do have a HR department. So I think in terms of some of the things that I asked earlier, I don't think it should be too difficult to be able to pull out from HR, because it is one of their functions to collect some of this information, i.e. ethnicity, background, so on and so forth. So I would suggest maybe that's where you could start to look for some of this information. Thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes all the questions and comments. The recommendation, if I Tom, in terms of what I've just said, to have a breakdown of employees, procurement, and apprenticeships for the operating company broken down into postcode, so we get what the councillors here and the team members are asking for. That would be a recommendation. Can I have someone to second it, please? Councillor Tom, thank you. Are we all happy with that recommendation? Thank you very much. Are we happy now then with the rest of the report? Yep. Thank you very much for that. And thank you very much, everyone. It's been quite a long evening for you guys. Thank you for your time. Okay, we move over to agenda item 8, which is the public space protection order. Now, we're going to take this item as read. However, James and Tony have got a few minutes to overview, and then we'll move over to questions.
Before we start, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. James, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, all. My name's James Hardiman. I'm a Safer Neighbourhood Enforcement Manager at Luton Council. So I manage our Uniform Neighbourhood Enforcement team, our enforcement contractor Wise, and collate on some of the partnership work around the town centre. So I'll try to keep it very brief. So this report is a 12-month update, which was requested from Overview and Scrutiny since the introduction of the continued public spaces protection order within Luton Town Centre, which was reintroduced in August 2024. But with an amendment made to increase to Hightown and the South Ward. So this is just an update. So within that past year, covering the data set from the 1st of August 24 to 1st of August 25, there was a total of 661 enforcements of the Public Spaces Protection Order, with 271 fixed penalty notices issued in that time. Of those fixed penalty notices issued, a large proportion of those were for spitting. However, there was a number issued for street drinking and begging. During that time as well, there was a number of additional ancillary orders which were applied for and obtained, and these were a result of individuals that had either had a number of offences relating to the Public Spaces Protection Order, or their behaviour warranted additional enforcement. So during that 12-month period, we obtained 4 criminal behaviour orders, with a further 3 pending court hearings at the moment, and 1 civil injunction. It's also apparent to note that obviously during the past year, we've undertaken numerous patrols with Bedfordshire Police and proactive operations, including Operation Metal, Operation Mercury Blade, Operation Foresight and Operation Rovik. And since the start of June 2025, we've also taken place in the Safer Streets Summer Initiative, which was focused on the town centre, which saw officers deployed from the hours of 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 p.m. at night. Chair, I've kept it very brief in terms of the update, so I'm happy to take any questions, comments.
Okay, thank you. Can I have raise of hands of everyone who wants to ask a question? Councillor Aslam, Councillor Begum, Councillor Hanif, Councillor Stevens. Okay, is that it? Thank you. Tom, no questions?
Talking about the bid, are we? Luton bid? No, it's all right then. It's just yeah.
Right, move over to Councillor Aslam Khan.
Thank you, Chair. This public space protection order has been in place for a very long time. What you've just given us is a number of people where you've given penalties. What this report doesn't give us is how many people you've prevented from begging, how many people you've prevented from drinking or reoffending. Because if we're talking about whole system approach, in my view, it's failed. It's failing because the same people begging again, same people drinking again, and you may be shifting the problem from one corner to the other. We see those people on Joy Street West, up King Street, moving up along the line, the same people just roaming around. And how it sometimes really surprises me how we as a town can't deal with this problem when others have dealt with it. So tell me, how is the system-wide approach is working? Could you give us an explanation?
Yeah, of course. So in terms of a whole system approach, and as I say, it's not just about enforcement alone, and that's really clear to focus on. In terms of the teams that I manage, we've recently taken on management of the Town Centre Intervention Group, which manages those individuals which are most problematic and causing repeat behaviours within the town centre. I don't have that data to hand in terms of how many people have been prevented and safeguarded from some of the behaviours that they've been engaged in. That's a public health data-led approach, and that's something that I can take away from this report and look to provide that with.
Follow up on that. I mean, put it this way: we as a council have invested a lot of money and time and effort, and we need to start holding people to account. Me and Tom was standing outside, and people got stabbed. I mean, we've increased our council tax to pay for the police, to give us a better service, to make our streets safer, yet they're becoming worse. Same thing with everything else that we do. We paying public health to, get grips of this problem and get these people, better and more productive. Same thing with employment, everything else. So, we're spending money, but we're not preventing the problem from happening in the first place. It's same people reoffending time and time again. And something has to change. If we don't change, we're just wasting our money. And so can you or someone, liaise and trying to get us the figures saying how many people have been reformed, how many people have been taken off the street, and how many people, you know, are not here in Luton anymore. You know, if they're just using Luton as a place to come and bag because it's free for all.
Chair, I'll take that as an item. Councillor Beacom.
Thank you for your report. My question is more along the lines of point 13, where you say that a number of fixed penalties has been issued against people for begging. How much have you been able to, like, how many people out of those that have been fined have paid their penalty, and how many are waiting to go to court?
So in terms of those figures specifically for begging, we have a very low payment percentage in relation to begging, if at all, if I'm going to be honest. And that's where our wider enforcement around begging. So when we talk about this criminal behaviour orders, the civil injunction. So we have a number of individuals that are repeat for begging related offences. We talk about, obviously, like we've just discussed in relation to that whole system approach, to look at the drivers of that behaviour. We tend to look at those and prioritise those that are more aggressively begging and causing the highest harm. So those that are physically approaching people rather than that passive element. So as I've stated within the report, we've looked at some of those that have been aggressively begging. So we've got 4 criminal behaviours with a further 3 that have been set aside for court, with another hearing at the end of this month. So we really are trying to prioritise those that are being most problematic, most aggressive to members of the public in their approach. I apologise, don't know whether that answers.
That's okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hanif.
Yeah, thank you for your report, Matt, and thank you to your team for, you know, what is an uphill challenge in terms of what's going on. A couple of questions, because I know we have a lot of interactions, but in this forum, 295 PSPOs issued for begging. I mean, what's been done about tackling that in terms of a multi-agency approach? Because there's some of them, they're just like, as been said, they just move around the town centre. They're working shifts. I've seen some of them put their bags in a car and drive off. What's been done to tackle that? Because some of them are getting a bit more aggressive. And above all, it's not a very good look for the town if that's the first thing you encounter. And then, from my own experience, I've seen them around the country. They're on the 406 in London. There's some positioned by the Spaghetti Junction in Birmingham. So what are we doing locally? And secondly, dogs. That's what I'm seeing a bit more of. There's some young people, they bring these dogs which are the size of a small pony. They're massive, these things, to showing them off, especially outside the Costa. So I would like to, you know, what's been done to increase the number of people being addressed for that. And thirdly, something needs to be done about the steps of the town hall, because that's becoming a regular spot in terms of either cordon it off, put some, I don't know, screen on there, because that's the grand entrance to the town hall, and there's people permanently sat there doing whatever. Most of the time it's drinking, and they just sat there. As soon as you guys are gone, they're back there. So something permanent needs to be done to at least protect those steps that are in front of the town hall under the balcony.
Yeah, so in terms of the 295 figure, so that's in relation to interactions with regards to individuals found begging. Like I've stated within the report, there's no point to keep on issuing fixed penalty notices to individuals. So it might be that we issue a fixed penalty notice, and then whilst we're going through that prosecution or collating an order, that we collate the interactions that we have. So we'll have an interaction with that person. You're very correct in terms of, actually, we might speak to that individual 5, 6, 7 times a day in relation to that behaviour. It is being addressed, and in terms of that wider approach, that's where we look at our town centre intervention group. We look at our wider colleagues that can input on drivers of some of that behaviour, whether that be mental health colleagues, whether that be drug and alcohol support, homeless prevention. So we work with a wide range of partners to try and address that. There are a number of challenges in relation to begging and the reasons as to why people beg, and that's why we do look at that whole systems approach in relation to that. With regards to obviously the steps at the town hall, and that is an area that we are aware of. We do regularly patrol in relation to that. With regards to wider features, that's something that we can take back to colleagues and ask those questions if there's anything additional that we can do. As I say, it does feature as one of our kind of regular hotspots in terms of patrolling, and we do regularly pay passing attention to that area. And apologise if I've missed any other points or questions. Dogs. Yes, so the public space protection order, so it covers 3 separate elements in relation to dogs. So dog fouling, dogs out of control, and dogs on a lead. So we are challenging that, and we had an individual approximately a month ago now, whereby an officer challenged and was subsequently attacked as a result of that interaction. We've dealt with that and very well supported by Bedfordshire Police. So we will have those interactions, but it's important that the dog has to be dangerously out of control or out of control or off a lead for us to have that interaction.
Follow-up, Chair. Sorry. What I find with some of these dogs is they're quite intimidatory, especially with families. Because when I speak to residents that live, because that's my ward, on these adjoining streets, St George's Square is kind of like a bit of a social space, and we want families to feel safe, not just from the town centre, but from across the borough as they come through there. And if somebody's there with a great big dog, there's one I saw which is quite big, and this young lad who quite deliberately had him. He wasn't muzzled. He had a very flimsy looking leash, and it was quite scary, you know, especially for young kids. So I think that was my line of questioning. So what could be done about that? And it's sorry to hear the incident that happened, but if we could try and look at, trying to discourage that.
Yeah, no, thank you. So all of our officers are trained dog wardens as well, so they're trained to spot the signs of aggressive behaviour. With regards to individuals that are ill controlling their dogs, we will go up and we will have that interaction as part of the public spaces protection order. If we feel that there is an animal welfare issue or that dog is too dangerous to be out of control, if it's too dangerous, then that's a matter for the police. Or if there's a welfare issue, that's a matter for the RSPCA. We will always have those interactions whereby the individual does not have control of that dog, and that's the important aspect to us, where the individual doesn't have control of that dog.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that's not shown here is rough sleeping. I was in the town centre on Saturday, probably about midday, in the little area opposite Chapel Street where the entrance is into the point. There was a group of about 5 people in that alcove next to where that cafe used to be, one in front of it. No sign of any enforcement officers, no sign of any police. I went up and talked to one of the guys that has the refuse truck in Market Hill, and he said he hasn't seen anybody around. He said that he and his team will quickly move in once they've gone and take away the mattresses and other things. So I'm not quite sure how well we are actually doing the policing. It is no good for the police just to stick a police car in, which is what they're doing. There's no police around. They stick a police car in George Street to give the impression that they're around, but they're not around. So, I mean, we need to be better at policing. The idea of improving the town centre is so that we can encourage the footfall and bring back in the residents that are scared to come into the town, especially the elderly. There's also in front of the town hall, not on the steps, there's always a group, a very vocal, I think there may be Polish groups that sit there, they shout, they swear. I'm not quite sure what we're doing about those, because I think sometimes later in the day, they're there with bottles of vodka and they're often sitting in George Square. We're never going to improve the town centre until we deal with this problem. I think perhaps we need to have more banning orders from the town centre, and perhaps we need to have a word with the magistrates to see if people can be tagged so that we can keep an eye on them as part of the measures to try and deal with the problem. I feel sorry for a lot of the people if they actually are resorting to begging because it's for the drug habits. I understand that. But at the same time, we have to balance also about the general population who feel unsafe about, especially the elderly, of coming into the town.
Thank you. So in terms of rough sleeping, I don't have that data. We're regularly engaging with individuals that are found to be rough sleeping, and we will often work really close and in partnership with our rough sleeping providers. And where possible, where individuals have been identified to have already been engaged with, we will take that enforcement action. We're really clear with all the individuals that we come into contact with, whereby there's items left, particularly close to Luton Point, that presents or can present a security risk. So we're always clear in terms of removing those items. We've got a really strong link with our street services team. So that's probably why actually they were clear to go in, because we're regularly doing that work in that, especially in that particular location. With regards to policing, that's not something that I can comment on. All I can say is that certainly as part of the Safer Streets Summer Initiative, we've had a number of days of action over the past kind of 3 months, and as we come up to the end of September, and we've been working really closely with them as part of the town centre, and obviously there'll be a piece of evaluation that comes out at the end of that. With regards to the individuals around kind of street drinking, and that's not an aspect that is lost upon us, and we've really only we started having those conversations again recently. Once again, when we look at the drivers of some of that behaviour, and we're actually looking into a bit of a piece of work about how and what we can do better to impact upon that specifically, and how we can change some of our ways of working to deal with some of those issues. So we're always striving to try and change our working methods to address it for members of the community. And I think it's really clear, certain from my side in terms of my enforcement teams, they're a really limited number. So I only have 8 officers that cover the whole of Luton dealing with environmental issues, ASB and everything that comes with it. And they've changed their shift patterns voluntarily to come in and do later working shifts. They really want to strive to make a difference to this town. A lot of them live within this town as well. So hopefully we'll continue to try to deliver on that. And as I say, we're always welcome as part of the Town Centre Task Force for new ideas, new initiatives to try and change and deliver on some of those for the members of the public.
Thank you. Councillor Begum, very quickly, please.
Just a quick comment in response to Councillor Stevens' question. I've been in the town centre a number of times, whether it's daytime, evening, late evening, after a movie at 11 o'clock sort of thing, after the cinemas have finished, 10:30ish. And I've always seen there has been patrols of police where they have shooed on really rowdy, noisy, drunken people and moved them on, as well as your own staff. So I have seen that happen. So I personally, I don't think there is an issue, obviously, but we can't expect people to be there 24/7. But I have seen them around, so I think it's wrong to say that we don't really see anybody around, because I have seen them around a number of times. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Does anyone have a comment that Tom, fairly quickly, please? We are running out of time.
Yeah, we make a lot more of it than it made the problem a lot worse by talking about it the way we do in here. Because the simple reason, it's pretty easy to solve. Other councils have done it. Some councils haven't bothered doing it, Councillor Elslam, because I travel around the country a lot and you'd be surprised what you see in other towns. But housing first would be the answer in Luton. Housing first tied into some of the behaviour problems. What do we do as a council? You had the Street Homeless Partnership, what worked really well, and it did work well. We're just giving outside Starbucks and the one in the town centre. And then you did an advertising campaign to say, if you want to give money for the homeless, these are the places to give it. We don't do it anymore. But my view is, unless you can get housing first in the town, and you have a look at the hostel accommodation now, where I can tell you Mary Seagull is operating at 98%. full. So unless we can get somebody to do housing first, a proper housing first, not the stuff we play at, but those people who have got alcohol or drug problems have got somewhere to go, where they can be treated, where they can be looked after, and it's tied in as part of the tenancy, we can still just keep talking about it forever. We're not going to solve it, because other councils that haven't done it that way have got exactly the same problem we've got. So it's either take it serious, do it properly, or just carry on trying to do enforcement against people who haven't got any money anyway. So what sense is in giving them a £50 fine when they've got nothing to pay it with? They've got to go. It's like the old story about prostitution, isn't it? Catch them doing prostitution, give them a £200 fine, and they have to go back out on the streets to get the money to pay the fine. And that's all you're doing with the homeless when they're begging.
Thank you,
Treat the
Tom.
problem.
Thank you.
And treat it with a proper housing first programme.
Thank you. Councillor Ayers, very quickly, please. We do need to go on to the next item.
I will be quick. I just want to say agree with what Councillor Shaw has said. A lot of places in London, they do that. They advertise it over the tannoy, on the trains, on the underground, that if you want to give to the homeless, go to a particular charity or go to, as you said, Costa or Starbucks or something. And so that's a good idea. That's a start at least, because it does work. And I've seen it work in the London boroughs. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Hussain.
I'm just leaving, and so I won't be very brief. All I would say is enforcement isn't just in the town centre. Other parts of the town need to be enforced. I've seen you the other day in the retail park issuing people the ticket. Whereas when you go to Market Square in Farley Hill or Crossway, look at the bloody state and then, do the enforcement. So please, it's not the town centre, it's other parts of the town as well. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is to note the report. Is everyone happy to note it? Thank you very much. Thank you, James, Tony. We now move over to agenda item 9, which is the formation of the executive advisory body. Can we, Sarah, is it okay if we take it as read and then you give a brief overview and then we go straight to questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you're probably all aware, the housing sector for local authorities has been subject to significant change over the last few years with the introduction of the Social Housing Regulation Act in 2023. This act embedded a framework for regulation, which includes new regulatory standards and an expectation of co-regulation. What that means in practice is that local authorities are expected to be much more engaged at all levels in the governance and oversight of housing services. And for us, that means the work of BTS and housing operations as the entire landlord service. Directors, chief execs, portfolio holders and tenants are all expected to participate in regulatory engagement now, and that includes through interviews in an inspection environment. Our self-assessment against the new standards identified gaps in our governance framework, and the proposal before you tonight is being designed to bridge that gap. The fundamental premise of the exec advisory body for housing is to improve that governance and assurance and oversight and accountability of the whole service, all in its entirety, and to make it fit for purpose in that co-regulation environment. The model has been devised alongside our colleagues in the governance department. Legal and financial colleagues have also reviewed the model, and there are no material impacts that have been identified as a result. So I'm here tonight seeking your views on the proposal and on the terms of reference, which are the appendix to the main report.
Thank you very much. Hands up for questions. Councillor Stevens, Councillor Shaw, Councillor Fry. Have I missed anyone out?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Can I just ask why under number 9, the performance is assessed, managed through a number of both qualitative and quantitative methods, we haven't included leaseholders forum as amongst that list?
So when we consider our role as a landlord, that does include the services that we provide to leaseholders, and so we would expect the executive advisory body to consider leaseholders' needs and the performance of our services to them as well. So, for example, things like communal areas.
Mention it under the implementation, we do mention tenants and leaseholders. So it seems to make sense to me that we should have the leaseholders forum actually feeding into it.
I believe the leaseholders forum is going to be represented on the exec advisory body by an invited member of that forum.
Okay, then that probably needs to be amended to include that. Under the implementation of the proposal, it's all very well looking at the effective risk identification, effective financial management. There is no accountability shown there. So should there not be an identification of accountability as well in that listing?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you repeat, please?
Yeah. Under 18, the implementation of the proposal will enable the council to achieve the following objectives of the entirety of landlord services across both directorates. Missing from that list appears to be identification of accountability. I can give you a prime example at the moment. If we look at the tower blocks around the Newtown, the Parktown tower blocks, the windows have been falling out. So in that point of view, when we're looking at how we're improving things, there should also be a retrospective look at accountability as to who is to blame. It's not included, as far as I can see.
So the terms of reference for the group include proposals around the kind of reporting that that group will receive and the challenges that they can present. And so they would be able to, under the terms of reference, challenge that kind of issue and request that accountability.
It should be included.
It's
as one of the
reference.
Well, the whole document's about accountability, Chair.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
The whole document's about accountability.
It will be for the members of the group to define exactly what they want to hear and see reporting on, and that is accommodated within the terms of reference. These are just examples of the types of work they can do. The final body of work would be devised by the group themselves.
My second to last point is on number 20. After it goes to the executive, how will it come back for further scrutiny for either the OSB or FRG or whichever? I'm not quite sure how that link back happens.
I would have to refer to Mark Turner and come back to you on that in terms of the protocol for reporting from executive advisory bodies, but I can do that and take that away, Chair.
Okay, and very finally, I note that its political proportionality does not apply to the housing improvement. I would like to suggest under item 12, it says 3 backbenchers elected from members from the political group with overall control. Well, if there's no proportionality, there should be perhaps either 1 from each political group or at least 2 from the main group and 1 from the main opposition group.
I'll take that on board and look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think there.
No, it's just a point of order. Can we allow the officers to finish their points before we interrupt?
Thank you. Sorry, I've lost my notes now. Yeah, Councillor Shaw.
So I was all asking questions. I don't think we've got any option but to go along with this. You've got the Leasehold Reform Act, you've got the Fire Safety Bill, the Ombudsman's already started pulling Southwark Council, one of the ones we took advice of about how they operate. The Ombudsman is now a dedicated housing ombudsman, so he's not going to, you're going to have a policy for absolutely everything. And if you haven't, they'll find in favour of the tenant or the leaseholder. I'm pleased that leaseholders are on there because the biggest part of the Leasehold Reform Act will affect leaseholders in the town. It's only right that they have a say in where we're spending the money, because if we decide to re-roof a block of flats and there's a leasehold in that block of flats, he's got to pay his share of that. So it's only right they have a say in quality, everything else we do. But we can ask questions all night. We've got no choice now with the three major housing acts what are going through Parliament to actually do this. And we might as well get on with it.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to know, are there costs associated with the committee? And if so, does the committee would have the capacity to make savings in order to negate those costs, bearing in mind all the budget cuts that we've been putting through?
Our colleagues in finance reviewed the proposals and they found that there were no material costs from the functioning of this committee that couldn't already be met within budget, with the budgets that we have. Yeah, I think there's nothing there that they're implicating. I would expect that the work of this committee would include looking at our financial performance, looking at our proposals for service development, assessing value for money. It is part of the terms of reference that they do that. And the very nature of this exec advisory body is to provide challenge, to be a critical friend, and to really ask some of those tougher questions around how the service is doing, where it's going and how it's performing. And that includes financially as well as other performance.
Thank you. That's reassuring. And I'm sure that will be something we'll look at in scrutiny anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Any comments? You've already had your comment.
You need to be very careful because three of the I'm not going to say where it is, but three of the posts you've identified for the tenants reps on there all come from one part of the town, one little section of the town, which there's concerns about that. But all three posts are from that same part of the town.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is to for the OSB to give their views on the proposal to establish a new executive advisory body, consider, discuss and give their views on the terms of office and the membership proposals. Are we all happy with that? And that's the indication that our time is up. So that's it. That's report taken. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. We move over to the OSB work programme. Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Members have before them the current work programme for overview and scrutiny board and its members' opportunity to either add or remove, or if there's anything on the horizon that they would like to be looked at.
Councillor Shaw.
Something missing from the work programme I'd like to see. I'm totally confused about the reporting lines of the social justice unit in the council. Who do you report to? How do you report? What they're supposed to be doing? What work they're supposed to be doing? I don't think anyone's sure. I know I've had 2 stabbings in my own ward, 2 serious stabbings in my own ward in the last 2 or 3 months. We've had no input from the social justice unit, all into it. I'd have thought by the title alone, they do it. So I'd like to set up a little scrutiny working group to have a look at the social justice unit, see what the remit is, see what the reporting lines are, and see if it needs to be improved. We need to do that from this committee, I understand.
Okay, thank you. One of the things to add from myself is I've had a conversation from Adam Divney. There was a performance report, corporate performance report that was supposed to come in the October meeting. He has requested that because the business intelligence team are still working on the electronic reports, if that can be taken to January, and both I think it was quarter 1 and quarter 2 would then be taken together. As the report would be half finished, I have accepted to take that report in January and get a full quarter 1, quarter 2 report. If there are no other objections or questions, I'd like to just answer Franks.
Yeah, just a quick point on that. I mean, if what Councillor Shaw's suggesting is a task and finish group, which is what it sounds like, technically that has to be set up by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and not by this body. But yeah, I can see no problem with it.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. I think, yeah, we'll look into it, yeah. That's fine. That's fine, thank you. It looks like we're all happy with the rest of the work programme. We will move over to Scrutiny Annual Report. Matt, is that yourself?
Chair, it's for information only.
Okay, that's fine. Are we all happy with the report that's been attached? Thank you. We now go over to the private agenda item, which shouldn't take too long. It's just the approval of minutes.
Just need to let finish the live stream.
That's fine.